to the Integrate Intelligently podcast. This is Jeff Brickler with episode 15, Manufacturing Software Trade Show Story Time. So now that we're leading into the fall season in October, the chill in the air, weather's cooling down, trade show season is starting up, some of my favorite times of the year. And so today, I'm joined again with Scott Brickler, a longtime attendee at these trade shows. And today we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences with trade shows, how CADTALK, what type of trade shows we go to, what those look like, and maybe trade show, that term, whether that term is or isn't really the correct term for what we do, but these events that we attend. So Scott, again, good to see you here. How's it been going?
Oh, good. I think we just, as you mentioned, we're going into some pretty busy travel month coming up. I mean, I know I have some as well. I mean, I'm actually heading out to a college visit. I have a daughter who's getting ready to go to college next year, so I have a few of those planned and then we have some other trips planned in there. But yeah, is user conference season is probably the better term.
Conference season.
Yeah, we have since we partner and we integrate to so many different packages, a lot of the packages we integrate to have user conferences, and then we like to attend those and meet our customers and also try to find new customers and it's just great to get out and meet people in person. It's hard. We do so much things virtually, but this is one of the few times a year that we get to meet people in person and talk to them, which is great.
Yeah, it is a busy travel. I think the next 6 weeks I'm traveling just about 5 of them, and so lots of different places. Trade shows or events do require lots of traveling, new places. Sometimes the standard kind of trade show locations, Florida, Texas, California, Nevada. Those are sort of standard trade show or conference places. And as you mentioned, we typically go to lots of user conferences, and by I mean a user is software users. So since we do integrate with CAD and PDM and PLM systems, right? So we talked about CADTALK, the Integrate Intelligent podcast being a kind of a platform to talk about integration and what we do, but also talk with our customers and partners. And so these events, these user conferences, are often sponsored by the software publishers or partners who want to kind of showcase their customers, offer learning opportunities, enrichment or continuing education in terms of using the software better. And so we're beginning that season again. I typically see kind of happens in 2 sessions a year, two sections. So beginning of the year up until kind of April, May, we'll see a bunch. And then usually in the fall, September, October, you'll see a bunch. And then of course, during the summer, people don't have those events because it's summer and folks are taking vacations with family. And then of course, around the Christmas season, those events are not going on as well. So, really twice a year in the first kind of 4 or 5 months of the year. And then, here in the September, and sometimes August, September, October timeframe. So Scott, we're starting up this event season. We'll be attending 2 events this month, 2 user events on October 14th. We'll be attending the Community Summit and IFS Unleashed, Community Summit in San Antonio, Texas, and IFS Unleashed in Orlando, Florida. So I'm looking forward to attending one of those and meeting some of our customers and our partners and really just learning about, kind of what's new in ERP and, how people are using the software. So Scott, you've been doing to these events, or these, trade shows probably for many years now. How long is your tenure of trade shows and events?
Got to be 20 plus years at this point. I think the very first trade show I ever went to was actually FabTech when I was working for Sigmatech back in, which is a nesting software company that I worked at before I started CADTALK. So it was I actually went to FabTech in Cleveland with a couple and that was probably the first time I had actually done that kind of thing, because when I worked in manufacturing, I think I never really maybe met a customer. I was behind the scenes doing the ERP implementation and things like that. But it was a great time going to FabTech in Cleveland and seeing all the machines and talking to everybody coming through and like I said, talking about nesting and things like that. So that was the first kind of trade show I went to. User conference, I would say the first ones I had gone to were actually for And I think I remember that there was actually one in 2008 that we went to for CISPRO. So that was the very first early days of working with CISPRO, and I was actually working on basically the third version or the third iteration of CADTALK at this point, 2008. And we were trying to get that, and it's still a very small company at that point, very few of us. And I was coding away from like December, and the show was in April, and we were trying to get it released so we could show it at the show, right? Because I think we even had a session or something like that. And I just remember it's kind of, I think of it fondly, even though we worked like crazy. I think I worked like 100-hour weeks for months, and I loved the code and everything like that. It was a lot of fun. So we really, I mean, we had customers at that time, and we had a few customers and things like that, even from the earlier years, from the first few versions. But this version was really the newest, all the ideas that we had. And it's actually the platform which CADTALK runs today. It was off of that work that was done in 2008 and late 2020, 2007. And just remember working like months and months and months on that just to get to that. And the peak was that show. And it was the first time I think we ever actually had a booth at a show, to do that. Everything else we'd done just kind of customer and things like that. So, early 2008, we had this show, we had to be there. And it was like the culmination of everything. I remember just like trying to get everything just so we could do demos. We could actually demo something. And I think so it was just like Inventor and CISPRO. That was the only thing I could get working in time. Even though we had like older versions that did more stuff, I wanted to show this version because it had the really cool, actually had the kind of the expression stuff that we do and things like that kind of built into the product. So it was a really cool, ability to, it was really neat to be able to show that at that time. So it was a lot of stress, but a lot of fun. And I think that the show was actually in Orlando, ironically enough. So,
yeah, it's really interesting or, powerful to listen to, like how you're doing all this work to go to this event, right? So that you could showcase what you were doing and what it was like at the early days, starting a software, building it yourself, and sort of going out there even after you built it, same day, same person going out there, standing at a booth and trying to get people to notice it. Hey, this is my software, right? Or this is what it does, and try to get people interested.
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of a stressful but a very fun time doing that. I mean, like I said, there was I think it was me and my business partner at the time. We went to the show and you just meeting customers and talking about it. And I mean, I remember even meeting some of our very first, we had customers, but we had a few, but meeting several of the customers we would get actually in the CISPRO market, the very early customers from the CISPRO market at that show, and just it was just neat. I mean, it was a really cool time. So being able to meet customers in person is always so much fun. And since then we've done some really cool events too, where we've done like customer appreciation type things, along the way. I remember one year we did we all went to like Howl at the Moon and Piano Bar, and we rented out the Howl at the Moon piano bar with some other vendors, and we basically had the piano bar guy playing them songs. We did all that. It was a really big hit, doing that. I was actually also in Orlando. So all these things seem to happen in Orlando. And then another one, which is really, really cool that we did, it was in Texas, where we actually rented out the Cowboy Stadium, the locker room, not the whole stadium, but the locker room at Cowboy Stadium, because it was in Texas. And we were able to get like the press room and the locker room. And we did this with a couple other vendors as well. And we bussed everybody into in there. And then kind of a cool story was that one of the bus drivers, at least the bus that I was on, the bus driver took a wrong turn in the stadium and actually drove out onto the field on accident. We were coming into the stadium, and luckily there was no turf or anything down on the stadium. It was just the concrete. But like, if you're familiar with like the big stadium in Dallas where the Cowboys play, they have this huge like bus literally drove, and the driver was all confused about where to go. I remember we actually started getting off the bus, and we're just standing on the field kind of looking around, and then a lady came down from the control room, was just completely freaking out because we weren't supposed to be there and telling us to get off the field and all this stuff. And it was like, and then like everybody who got there earlier was in the locker room could see us, and they're all kind of out there like wondering what's going on. It was just a really cool story. I like what happened. I mean, obviously no big deal. We just drove we got back on the bus. They drove us out back over to the locker room, but it was just it was a really cool night. It was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, a lot of times as user conferences, vendors like ourselves or others will have, even the whoever's holding the conference will have these customer appreciation events where you'll have a party, like you said, like go to an event space like a Howl at the Moon Saloon or at the Cowboy Stadium, where you might have drinks and light appetizers, and people can mingle and talk and just kind of unwind after those user conferences. So yeah, I remember going to some of those events. First time I ever went to Las Vegas was at a trade show event. I had never gone to Las Vegas, and first time for me in Las Vegas was at a user conference. And so, I'm headed out next week to Orlando to IFS Unleashed. And then some of our other team are headed to Microsoft Community Summit, Dynamics Community Summit. And so those two conferences are going on at the same time. Not next week, but the week after, where we'll be attending those events where there'll be, IFS Unleashed is a global event. So I know that folks, partners and IFS staff will be coming, employees will be coming from all over the world to that event in Orlando. A couple of years ago, it was in Miami, where there'll be, sessions to talk about the new release of ERP and, kind of new features, and there'll be other vendors like ourselves. And then also, I know at the Community Summit, Microsoft Community Summit will be there as well. And similar, right? There'll be Microsoft Community, ERP community, partners, Microsoft themselves, at least the Dynamics portion of the division of Dynamics from Microsoft. And so those events typically are kind of two styles I've seen, at least in my experience. There's like what I call user conferences, which is usually held by like users themselves. And those are very functional, like, how do I do this in my system, right? How do I solve this problem that I have with scheduling, or how do I solve this problem with the AP transactions or something? And then there are other type events which I notice are a bit more promotional or a bit more kind of marketing, in the sense of like, hey, this is some of the new features coming out in the software, some users case studies. Hey, these customers are achieving these results with our system. Here kind of thought leadership, right? Kind of executive summaries and executives sharing their successes with implementing a software, some of the ideas they come up with. Is that what it's always been like? Or in your experience with user conferences, it's always just been user conferences, or had you also had these sort of other, what I would call marketing or more like thought leadership?
It's been both. I mean, I think the typically get, the thought, it depends on who puts them on. Like a lot of times if the vendor's putting them on, they kind of have a combination. So almost all of them are some kind of combination of that. Like I think they just lean one way or the other depending on where the focus is. Because sometimes there's kind of multiple goals of a given event, right? If it's like, one is to show the new things and get customers to to want to buy the new things, and there's some of it is education about what they already have, and and then also there's a big part of it that's also around building community around as well. So I think about community education, community, and obviously sales too. I mean, it's part of that. It's part of marketing. Marketing would be a better way of saying it. So marketing, community, and education. That's usually the three areas that you're looking at for events. And depending on if it's a user-driven event, it tends to be very, very heavily focused on education and less on marketing.
Right.
And then, but if it tends to be, a vendor-driven event, then it would be more equally balanced. There's typically a lot of really good. I know that customers tend to like user events a lot, but you tend to have a lot more kind of fun things happening with a vendor sponsored event. There's a lot more dollars to work with as far as doing fun things and having them in fun venues. Because, user groups are typically have lower budgets to work with and things like that. So where the vendors, because they get access to a marketing budget, tend to do a lot more fanfare around the events, which makes them a little bit more fun from an attendance standpoint. That's where you typically have your things in Vegas, and then they have nicer hotels, and then I know that one of them, some of the ones I've been to, they had Bruno Mars and the guy from Maroon 5 sing there. I mean, that's how big these events can get. And then, and like a user event may have a nice finger foods cocktail party.
Yeah.
That's about
Yeah.
it. So it's like, so it's like that. That's the level of difference between the two. But,
Yep.
it depends on what your goal is for going to the event is, right? So, I mean, it's so like, it just depends, but there are some others, there's different pros and cons of that. I think we don't like the ones that I was talking about earlier where we've done like some neat things with the events has actually been at some of the user conferences because we can shine there as opposed to being at a vendor driven conference that like you're going to be outshined by the money and the marketing spend of that vendor. It's just hard. So it kind of makes up for the fact that it's a user conference. We can use some of our marketing budget to kind of enhance the event or help with that event and things like that. So yeah, so that's kind of the mix that I've seen in the past as well. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, to your point, those publisher or those vendor events, they'll get folks like us and other ISVs, independent software vendors, who will come together along with that sort of enterprise, or say IFS or Microsoft or another ERP, Syspro or Infor or Acumatica or Oracle or SAP or any of those events. They have these events, right? And they might be in part sponsored by the publisher, but then they'll have all these like ISVs like ourselves who will also want to sponsor. So you get, as you mentioned, all this money, all these dollars from different vendors and the main vendor. And so they got all this money to put on, the event, right? Not just speakers, but they can have music and food and drink and even classes or, like you said, education, and it can do all of that and come to one place. And you can have, thousands of people. A small event would be like 1,000. Well, one of those publisher events, you might have, on the small side, 800 to 1,000. The large side, 3, 4, 5,000, maybe more. I remember I went to, like you, I went to FabTech one year, and there's like, which is more of a trade show. It was like, I don't remember. It was like 10,000 people or 20,000 people. It was like going to a sports event because there was just so many people. But when you have those publisher events, like software publishers, they can do really nice things because, like you said, it's more fun because they have all these different things that you can do. There are really great places like Orlando or Las Vegas. One time I went to an event, I think it was a Microsoft event, and part of the customer appreciation was that we got to go to Universal Studios in Orlando, and they had blocked off part of the they had blocked off Hogsmeade, which for if you're a Harry Potter nerd like I am, that's the part. Hogsmeade is the part of it's like the little town that leads up to Hogwarts, right? So so at Universal there's Hogwarts, and then there's this Hogsmeade, which has restaurants and shops and stuff. That part was all rented out, right? So just the event people could go and ride whatever was there at that event, and so. I just remember it, it was so cool because usually that area is packed full of people, but we got it felt like you're like VIP, right? Because you're just the only one there. The event might only have 2,000 people, and you're 2,000 people at Universal for like 4 hours.
Oh yeah,
you don't have to wait or do anything. You just walk on right on the stuff.
Yeah, actually, that 2008 event, Syspro event, they did the same thing. This is before the Harry Potter stuff was there. They rented out the Universal. That was my first time ever going to Universal. It was really cool, like having those types of events where they literally rent. And then they had like in another event they did, it was like in Vegas, and they would actually get like a private show with a magician or something like that. They would do things. I mean, it's just a great time to like bring people together and build that community because you have that shared experience with people that in a fun environment, and in a fun environment to be able to do, just get that camaraderie. Because like, even if I think I heard something from a company that we work with in the past that does events, and they said that like people, it's like chocolate broccoli, right? The chocolate is the education. That's what justifies it to the companies that send people to do things. So they want to get the education, they want to kind of stuff. But the broccoli is actually the community, which nobody really wants to pay for, but they love it, but they stay for that, or they stay for the community. So when you get to go to those things and you meet people and you learn about what they do in the hallway conversations and the relationships that you build at those events, because they're in person with the shared experience of doing the fun things or even sometimes even the hard things. Like, there's sometimes harder things that you can share community with that as well. That's what actually keeps people coming every year to those events. So it's just because I think, like, it's funny, we go to these things and like we'll work booths and stuff, and then like it's a very educational event. You get people who are just so, well, I got to go to all the sessions. I got to go to all the sessions, And, selfishly, we want to talk to people because we're there trying to market as well. But actually some of the best conversations I've had, and I think have been, we provide a lot of value to people, is having those conversations at the booth, talking about their problems. And even if they weren't going to buy CADTALK, we were able to offer up solutions or connect them with people that could help them with their businesses and what they were trying to do. A lot of times because we know people who know about the problem they're having, or we have a lot of connections in that ERP space or that CAD space that we can, lend a hand in and work as a connector, as well, and provide a lot of value. So, I would always recommend people, if you go to those shows, just don't walk right past the vendor areas. That's like those people are sponsoring the event, but also those people know all the people you need to know, and they can connect you and give you a lot, and they can provide a lot of value even beyond just the products they offer as well. So,
yeah, if you would think, I mean, people might think, hey, like I've been to lots of events, sometimes even internationally, in Europe and elsewhere. And people might think, these events are amazing to get to go to these places and get to go to a Universal and do that. For me, the most enjoyable part, it sounds a little cliche, or I like meeting and talking to the people, right? So both customers who come by, who've owned CADTALK and may have known me and worked with me over the years and just like to stop by and have a chat. I always love that. And then also people who just want to come by and may or may not need something, but just curious, want to ask questions or want to learn something. I think it goes back to my teaching days, and I just love to share my expertise with people, share what I know. I just like if I can help somebody, and not necessarily, of course, our goal is, the goal of any company, if you're selling anything, right, is that you think you can help people. That's the whole reason you exist. I mean, I think sometimes we can be cynical about it, like, oh, you're trying to sell me something. You're like, but really, the thing is we think we can help, right? We can do something. We can provide knowledge. We can, help solve problems. We can do, really providing that value. And I think I just enjoy sharing what I know, regardless if someone buys or not. Hey, I've done that problem. I've had this problem. Or, hey, I know what you're going through. I haven't seen anybody solve that. I get what you're saying. Like one, I had a call just the other day where the customer, it was a good just conversation. They come and say, I got this problem where they get like drawings from, they're like a contract manufacturer. They get drawings from their customers, and they have to just make this stuff. And they're like, their drawings are like step files. And like there's no CAD documents other than step files. And so they got to figure out how to make this thing, but they don't have, that. And so they're like, we're trying to figure out a way to estimate it. It just takes so much time, estimate, and, they're not doing their own designs, but they got to figure out how to make it. And they want to hope CADTALK could help with them. And I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly, but I couldn't help them. I said, look, I understand your problem. And I've had other people come to me, and, likely is like, that's a challenging problem because you're getting the stuff, the documents that you get, PDF, step files, drawings, they don't have any information in them. They don't have any, like, how do you make this thing? It just shows you like this part needs to be so big, and the tolerance is that like this, and it should look like this. I mean, it's all you get, right? You don't get enough information to actually know. You got to give it to an engineer who has to then figure out, without drawing it, how do we make this thing here? And so they were hoping for a solution. I couldn't help them. But my only point is, I just enjoyed the conversation, right? I enjoy trying to share what I know and help them, whether I can help them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the part. I mean, with any kind of, you think about, just as you mentioned, it's like any kind of transaction, you don't want to have a transactional relationship, that doesn't last very long, especially when it comes to software or anything. It's like, you want to provide value to and if that, and then if you provide value, then there's no issue with, getting value in return. Right. So it's like, and by going to this I think that's very common synopsis of like, well, I would go to let me talk to that guy who's just trying to sell me. And it's like, well, if, yes, because the reason we're trying to is we think we could help you in your business. If we didn't, then then it wouldn't make any sense to do that. And I think are cases where people, people are just trying to sell it regardless of if you need it or not. But if you're doing it correctly, you're providing a value, and hopefully the value you provide is way outpaces what you're asking for that thing. And And I think say vendors, like I mentioned earlier, if you work with them, they can provide they have a lot of insights. They have a lot of I always think about CADTALK as being like a way. Let's put it this way: like say like a lot of these guys they go to the shows and they want to educate and learn how to use their ERP or their CAD or whatever better, right? And I think of a tool like CADTALK as and what we try to provide is to allow them to get even more value out of the tools they already own, right? Like so. If you think about it, like a bill of material, like is essential to an ERP, right? You can't really do much if you're a manufacturing company. You really can't do much without a bill of material. And if you think about like all the different areas of the ERP that are driven by bills of material, it's like a lot of it. I mean, it's like we used to even have an ad that we said it was like this ERP is useless without a BOM, and why not get it right the first time? And so like if CADTALK can help you get that data correct and get it in there so you can use the ERP, then you've gotten more, you already spent a lot of money getting the ERP in place. Why not ensure that it's being used to its fullest potential? It would be like the equivalent of putting new oil in your car and making your engine run better. Why wouldn't you do that? Right. Or better gas or whatever. And we're just one example of that. There's lots of different, with like, AP automation or invoices and, OCR scanning and automation and all these different things that you can do that would help you leverage the investment you already have. So you're doing that. So when you're going there, like you can talk to vendors and and learn, and the education is going to help augment and get better utilization, but also better tools will help with that as well. So, learning about those things, knowing they're available could provide a competitive advantage for your business, and knowing how to use those things and also just building a relationship and having that network of people to talk to and ask questions and say, hey, it's like you mentioned before, like the guy with the step file thing, right? It's like, at least he knows now that there isn't the solution.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. At least he knows that not just that there isn't a solution, that I'm not a solution, and that it's a hard problem. Right. And I gave him some options because he was asking, I actually pitched him on, and I said, hey, I think based upon like the data you get and what you're doing, I was like, because they get some PDFs documents that have text on them, and from that text they have a standard format that that comes in, and they could use like rules to like fill out a spreadsheet. I said, based upon what you're telling me, I think AI could help with that. You could upload the text in that PDF, and then you could teach it to, like, AI would do it because it was very text based with descriptions in a standard format. I said, I would explore that would help you. And you can have it generate like an Excel file, like a tabular data based upon, because you could share your documents. You could take like your document that you create, like that Excel file, and then the document you took it from, and then like feed that into the GPT, and like I would help you. I said, I think that's like a viable solution that you could do today. If you're trying to solve this, that won't cost you hardly anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I think that's absolutely true. It's like you did a great job there of like, yes, they're not going to buy anything from us, but at least we can provide some value, and that will come back. And that's something that you can learn, by bringing those types of questions to the vendors and asking them and things like that. You can get those types of answers, and we want to be able to do that. I mean, everybody wants to be helpful and provide value as much as we can. And then, same thing. If we had that relationship there, then we can. If you have a need in the future that we can help serve, that works for everybody. I think you get what you put out in the world, right? I mean, if you're just trying to take, you don't, it doesn't work really well. So having these events and where we can provide the value is great. I mean, we love doing that. So.
Yeah, I think if people were to ask me, like, well, I don't want to go to these trade shows, I don't want to go by the booths because people are just trying to tell me something, or I don't want to do it. I would encourage people. I said, go to the, like you said, a network, meet people, talk about the problems you have, ask questions, say, do you know somebody? Do you know somebody who might be able to solve this problem? Have you heard of this problem before? Or at least, and you'll build that network up, and then it's because you've got the concentration of all the knowledge, right? And I always love helping people, even if it's not like my domain. I'd go, well, I don't know. I don't know how to solve that problem, but if I were going to go look, this is what I'd look for. Right. I'd go, this is how I'd think about going to do it. And even I'm just trying to help. Right. I think the best marketing, sales, or products, they're coming from the idea. I just want to help. I want to help you solve your problem, even if I can't solve it with my software. I can't sell. To your point, I can't sell you anything. I can help you solve your problem or help you think about where to go to solve that problem. I remember when I was a kid, Dad used to always, because our dad was worked on cars and he was in an auto body shop. He used to, he'd be in there and he used to have me, maybe this is why I got used to calling, and talking to people, but I remember he used to make me get the phone book out. It tells you how old I am. Get the phone book out and call about parts to find some kind of part he needed. He'd tell me what it was. And then I'd go and call, right? I'd call people up and I'd say, hey, do you have this part? And they go, no, we don't have that. So where can I find that? Do you know? And then, people would help you and then you could get to where you needed. You could get to what you needed. So you can use those events as networking, but also just people who in that industry can point in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's a good point. Actually, speaking of events, I got to go. I got to jump on a plane here. My wife keeps stepping in and give me.
That's right. We're headed out. I've got to cut this one short because Scott's got to run. Man, got an event. Now this one is a personal event, but nonetheless. Well, Scott, thanks for talking to me, going down memory lane about these events. I'm looking forward to in a couple of weeks attending those events. So, if you're a listener, if you're going to go to one of those events, that's either the Microsoft Community Summit or the IFS Unleashed, or you're going to be at an event, please stop by the booth. Scott and I would be happy to talk to you, help you with whatever it is you're trying to achieve. If Scott's not there or I'm not there, talk to one of our folks. We're always looking to help you achieve what your goals in your business. So again, thanks, Scott, today for that trip down memory lane, talk about the events and trade shows. We will be at, like I said, 2 trade shows, not next week, but the week after, IFS Unleashed and Community Summit. So thanks for listening. Again, if you can find us at CADTALK.com, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and all your favorite podcast distribution channels, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So Scott, you have a safe event, safe travels, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Sounds good, guys. Thanks so much. All right. Bye.